Welcome to the Innovation Week. My name is Marta Giral Sanchez, and I'm the Program Area Manager of Innovation at Ziggurat Global Institute of Technology. During this Innovation Week, we'll have a lot of presentations, use cases, in order to move from innovation technology to strategic decision making. So let's have a look at the agenda for today. Today, we will deep dive into AI algorithms and AI business models. First of all, we will start with Juan Carlos Gutiérrez, who will explain us about predictive modeling and advanced data analytics and bring us some insights into business models of AI. And later on, we will have a use case by Angela Shen-Hsieh, in which she will tell us everything about AdTech and MarTech in the telco sector. Ziggurat is a global institute of technology with more than 20 years of experience in online learning for professionals. We aim to catalyze and empower professionals and organizations to lead the change of the industries and sectors. So being part of Ziggurat means connecting and networking with more than 2,000 students every year from more than 100 nationalities. It means being able to get mentoring from top industry experts, being able to learn everything by doing through workshops, use cases, and specific projects. And finally, and not least important, is meeting face-to-face with your peers and professors during our 2 students' weeks that we organize each year. But before we start, I want to let you know that we have a surprise for you at the end of this whole session, so stay tuned. So first of all, we're going to talk with Juan Carlos. He has more than 10 years of experience as a CTO in different sectors. He's also managing partner and CTO of Setesca, a strategic consulting company. And he's also professor at Ziggurat Global Institute of Technology of our global MBA in digital transformation. So thank you, Juan Carlos, for being here. The floor
is... Thank you very much, Marta. Perfect. Thank you very much, Marta. Welcome, everybody. Well, my name is Juan Carlos Gutiérrez. I'm CTO at Setesca. We are an innovation and technology company based in Barcelona. And for me, it's a pleasure to share with you this journey regarding, in that case, moving from AI algorithms to AI business models. First of all, this is a hot topic. This is an amazing topic that it can cover a lot of books and a lot of pages. For today, in the plane, first of all, let me introduce you some essentials when we're talking about analytics, predictive models, or machine learning. Most of these topics are so amazing those days because more of the time we are surrounded for these kinds of devices. In the case, for example, regarding artificial intelligence, the main topic today, I think that the best introduction is regarding, for example, about what Colin Sher, a world-renowned authority on artificial intelligence, told before. A computer doing something that, if done by a human being, would be judged to be intelligence, will be a good translation regarding this definition. But artificial intelligence is more than that. We're talking about, for example, natural language understanding. We're talking about, for example, natural language generation. We are talking visual recognition, for example, autonomous driver cars. We have autonomous systems too in logistics industry, for example, of course, Internet of Things, like an emerging technology and machine learning. All of this kind of stuff give us a new perspective regarding how artificial intelligence and other branches within artificial intelligence can help us to our business in order to try to find answers to solve any kind of problems regarding our business. I think another important essential term that is important to to prepare a good meaning is about machine learning. We're talking about machine learning as a branch within artificial intelligence. This is another good definition regarding machine learning: the exposure of craft business data to computer algorithms that find patterns and generate models. In that case, we're talking about most of the times regarding predictive models. This is important. We're talking about machine learning that we introduce another concept. Sorry, because it's important that you understand the essentials regarding we're talking about modeling. We're talking about machine learning algorithms. We're talking about artificial intelligence algorithms. In that case, machine learning. Then we talk about a kind of learning that is called supervised machine learning. In that case, we are working about the idea to try to solve business problems regarding our yes or no, or stay at the company or leave the company, on off, and so on. So the next concept I want to introduce you is data mining, because most of the times there is a lot, or maybe will be so risky confusing regarding machine learning, data mining, artificial intelligence. Of course, it's all part of artificial intelligence, but in the case of data mining, it's very important because data mining is more or less like a traditional machine learning. We call it, or that traditional machine learning equals to data mining. In that case, it's important, we're talking about data mining because this kind of methodology can apply to any kind of companies, any kind of needs, doesn't matter. In that case, another good definition regarding data mining is that we are making analysis or collection of analysis of data accumulated during the normal course of doing business. This is no new data. We are talking about the historical data that have our company. For example, regarding transactions with customers, regarding behavior, regarding service, regarding social network, doesn't matter. A lot of kind of data sources. In that case, data mining help us to find patterns, to find unknown relationships within the data that never before that we never seen before. In that case, we can deploy, or we can make models, predictive models that give us outcomes, that give us insights in order to try to solve any kind of problem. Imagine, for example, we need to increase our sales, or for example, we want to retain the name of the customers. My colleague Angela, in the next presentation, talk about the telco monetization, data monetization. One of the things aspects in that case is churn, the churn model. It's about, well, I see you in a couple of slides move forward. But in that case, the most important asset here is data. Most of the times we are surrounding about data. We are surrounding about big data, data that comes from RP systems, from traditional systems, from social network. We have a very complex big data that we need to leverage. So in that case, we need this kind of information, craft information, data not prepared initially in order to define model and to scores on new data. This is the goal of, in that case, predictive modeling. It's important, and we talk about again, or we need to introduce another trend, that algorithm. In that case, and as a more or less set of rules that a machine, and especially a computer, follows to achieve a particular goal. In that case, we are talking like a workflow, or like a ordinary sequence in order to do actions to finally offer us one outcome or insight. When we're talking about algorithm is not a new concept. It comes from the 40s and the 50s from statistics. But of course, right now we have fancy algorithms, like for example, deep learning, or for example, we have regarding forestry and so on. But if we're talking, for example, regarding decision tree or logistic regression, we are talking about the so-called white box algorithms that come out from statistics. But right now, we can add a machine learning, or we can add data mining level in order to give them more powerful and give us, in that case, this kind of insight or outcome to try to solve a business problem. I think the most important here is that machine learning algorithms or data mining algorithms always must to follow a guide. In that case, my recommendation is always follow this guide, CRISDM. CRISDM is an acronym that comes from cross-industry standard process for data mining, and basically offer us a set of rules that we need to try to follow in order to arrive, in order to be successful in any kind of data mining project. It's very important to understand when we start up a new project regarding machine learning, or regarding, in that case, data mining, that the most important that we have is to try to identify the business problem, business problem solution in order to give us several solutions or an action plan. This kind of guide, 3DM, is a methodology, like for example ISO or something like that, it can help us in order to be more ordered when we try to start up, or we need to leverage with these kinds of circumstances or these kinds of projects in order to be successful. Business understanding, data preparation, modeling, evaluation, deployment. Set rules in that case that we need to follow, or my recommendation is that we need to try to follow in order to arrive at a good destination. It's important you can delve more in depth through internet in order to see regarding about all the phases and tasks involved in increase DM methodology in order to be step by step, again, in order to try to be so smart and clever with the kind of projects. Most of the times, if you, for example, don't follow this kind of roadmap in this or this kind of methodology, your project will be maybe a failure, because my recommendation again is to try to maintain the story fulfillment of these phases and tasks. And important thing to note about business case models. Okay, we're talking about machine learning or data mining, these kinds of artificial intelligence algorithms, like is the topic of this session. We have limitless case models. We can apply predictive analytics, or we can apply a predictive model over any kind of industry, any kind of company, and so on. For example, we can add this kind of solution to customer segmentation, to market basket analysis, financial ranking for detection. In my own case, I participate in the pandemic with a project in that case regarding the illness recognition through chest recognition through an algorithm in order to detect COVID-19 or not. So there is a lot of use cases that where we can apply a predictive model. The most important is problem definition. Poor problem definition of, for example, we want to retain the number of the customers, we want to increase the number of the customers, increase revenue, or increase the income. In the case, we need to know about the problem definition. But then we have a lot of use cases to implement these predictive models, in that case, of these predictive models through machine learning or through data mining algorithms. Finally, well, not finally, but the important is about tooling. So nowadays we are surrounded with a lot of tools that we can use in order to start to work with machine learning or start to work with data mining algorithms. I present you, I plot in the case a diagram from the Magic Quadrant of Gartner, but of course we have solutions that works on premise, we have solutions that works on the cloud, we have the famous players like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Azure, etc., where we can deploy so quickly any kind of solution regarding machine learning. Of course, we have the IBM, Space Modeler, RapidMiner, etc., etc. We have commercial package, we have open source package, we have Python, we have R, and so on. The list of tools of the software is unbelievable, but important, tooling selection is always the last steps. You never must face this kind of project thinking about which is the tool of my choice that I want to use. This is the last step. First of all, again, is to identify really the company problem or the business problem. Problem definition is the first and the main and mandatory step. Tooling selection, of course, is important, but is not the more important in this kind of project. And finally, my experience, I see customers that they got this kind of problem. This is a perfect business case or use case for a company, the chart model. The chart model basically defines that when a client can sell or leave an subscription to a product or service that they are using before the contract expires. Imagine that you are a customer for Netflix, from Amazon, and so on, and because you have several concerns regarding your service, several your invoices, several the quality of service and so on, and automatically you want to leave the company. So the chart model is in a very use case where apply this kind of predictive models in order to give us, if I have information, I can anticipate the customer relation. So for example, I can I can deploy a strategic plan in order to offer them a better fares, a better product, and so on. But again, predictive models on predictive analytics in that case are suitable for all kinds of companies, are all kinds of problems in that case. Okay, that's all. I think that there are a lot of terms, but I think that's important here is that under the umbrella of artificial intelligence, we have several kind of methodologies, we have several kinds of science in order to work for. Now I think it's time for Q&A, and I don't know if Marta goes into again.
Yes, thank you, Juan Carlos, for your presentation. So now we have the time for Q&A, so you can all leave the questions in the chat of YouTube and LinkedIn.
Perfect.
And we'll answer them. So let's see.
Please, if you have any question regarding the presentation, regarding about the topic, this is a very extensive topic. Okay.
Okay, we have a question. So they're asking, what are the biggest barriers and challenges in implementing these predictive models?
Data treatment, of course. The data cleansing, data preparation is by far the 70 to 80% of the whole time of preparing a predictive model, because you have several data sources, you have very unstructured data, and the process to clean the data, to work with missing data, to work with misspelled data, and so on, by far is the most time-consuming part of CRISDM methodology, by far. I can hear you, Marta, right now.
Oh, no. So, okay, so we don't have more questions at the moment. Let me see. Let's see, is there something you'd like to add, Juan Carlos?
Sorry?
Is there something you would like to add?
No, basically that, well, okay, here in Sigurat, we offer the choice to show more in depth all of these topics inside the master, and then we don't see only the theoretical part of machine learning or data mining, so we can complete with more samples, more live sessions in that case, in order to see real how functions or how runs these kind of models with real data, with a real scenario.
And how, now that you're speaking about the masters, the global MBA, so can you tell us a little bit what kind of practical, let's say, applications do we have within the masters on the topic of AI?
Well, basically, it's not only the project related, but the idea is that all the knowledge that a student can collect from this topic, they can start from the scratch in order to try to give answers to the business through these kinds of algorithms. The idea on the master is where we are focused more on CRISDM methodology. So the idea here is not so much important to talk about tooling, because I told before the tooling is an accessory. It's important, but it's not mandatory. But in that case, in the course, we can describe exactly how CRISDM runs and how CRISDM adds these kinds of algorithms in order to try to solve this kind of business problem.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. And I said there's some more questions. They're asking, is it expensive to adopt these new technologies? How are companies seeing this whole process of adopting?
Good question. The problem here, or the thing here, or the bottom line here is not about the expense. The bottom line here is that we need to have the sponsorship of the company. We need to have the sponsors of the managers, the stakeholders, the board, because this isn't a project for the company. This is not a project from IT department. This is not a project from data department. So first of all, we need to add on the same table subject matter experts. We need to add to the same table C-level executive, and then all the staff from a computer science department of data science. Right now, we call it the data science department. So the idea here is not so much expensive, because the idea here is to have a good problem definition, involve the company, involve the senior managers, in order to give us a very important thing is to give them, in that case, a return of investment. We need to give us an ROI, because this kind of project, data science project, at the same, for example, IT projects or something like that, we need always to offer a return of investment to the board, because they need to invest, for example, money regarding the people that are working so close in the project. We need to invest money or time, in that case, in tooling, in subject matter experts. We need to concrete, like any kind of project, through a project charter regarding about the expenses and regarding about the return of investment. So we need KPIs to measure rapidly the gain of the project. This is mandatory. So finally, the expenses will be more relative. My base choice in that case is not one algorithm to solve one problem. Maybe we are need to work with several hundred algorithms in the trend and meta modeling. We don't have an right calculator in that case, but for instance, we need to present an ROI and a KPI to measure around the gain of the project.
Okay, there's another question.
Perfect.
What is the most important tool used in data analytics? And do you think every data analyst should be well familiar with the tools?
Well, there is a lot of tooling in the parade. In my own case, for example, I use more frequently IBM SPS Modeler, but I use Python, I use R. It depends, doesn't matter. In that case, for example, if you have an infrastructure on premise, and you have, for example, data centers that you have on premise on your installation, for example, you can use IBM SPS Modeler, you can use, for example, NIME or RapidMiner or Weka or something like that. But then you can move to cloud. And then right now, Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Google, etc., can bring you all the platform that you can start rapidly working with the machine learning. For my choice, for my preferred choice, I bet from IBM SPS Modeler. SPS is an old product from 80s. So finally, IBM adds to the portfolio. But RapidMiner is a very, very good solution. But again, here the main problem you must to face as a data science is the data that you have. This is the most important asset. Then you have to try to the platform. You can start for a trial from NIME, from RapidMiner, from IBM. You can start for free from Microsoft Azure. You can test, you can trial a lot of solutions in order to start to work with.
The question. Let me see. What tools can business use to define their problem? As this step is important as part of CRISP DM.
What? Can you repeat, please? Sorry, Marta.
So what tools can businesses use to define their problem? And it says, it mentions the model that you said of CRISP DM.
Yeah, the CRISP DM is a methodology. In that case, it's a complex set of rules that give us clues. In that case, when we try to start over for this kind of project, the main tool is a good meeting with the managers, with the board, with the general manager, in order to analyze which is the problem or which are the problems that we want to solve through predictive analytics. This is the main point. And when we have this meeting with the board, or we have this meeting in that case with the general manager, very important again to add to the same table to the subject matter experts, folks that comes from logistics, from marketing, from sales, and so on. And then we can start to work on a project. Data science project is more similar, like for example, an IT project or a financial project. You need to start with a project charter, and then you need to start to compile all this kind of information, and then you prepare a project plan. And then when you prepare this project plan, you start to deploy. You need to analyze which are the data that you have at your disposal. If you need to buy external data, if you need to get data from other kinds of data sources, and then you start to choose the tool in order to work with the predictive models in that case. One more important thing is that if, for example, you have, or your organization have data warehouse or data lake, and your idea is, okay, I have the data suitable for start any kind of data science project. It's not true. You need to start from the scratch. You need to craft this data. The data that you have, the data, your business data, or data you have for business intelligence or for data lake is not the same. Predictive models is predict the future with past data. Business intelligence, for example, we are talking about the present tense, right month, right quarter, right year, year ago, etc. So when we start a new data science project, a new machine learning project, in that case, we need to start to craft the data, our business data. This is a very hard process, and there is no magic, there is no tool that you need to work, you need to make to stand this process independently of the tool. This is the hard part of the CRISDM methodology. I don't know if I answered the question, but because it's a question, because there is no, CRISDM is not equal and a tool. No, it's a set of rules, but then you need a bunch of tools, not only IT tools, a project charter, several meetings, good problem definition, and then you start over.
Okay, so we have another question. It seems like it's a very interesting topic. So this question says, what are the 3 mistakes you see most often in data science team operations?
Well, data science team.
Sí, yes.
Okay, okay. Well, most of the times, not to introduce subject matter expert. First of all, when we start to work with these kinds of projects, data mining projects in that case, we need to work with data science teams. Not all the companies have this kind of data science teams. So data science teams is a team that is more or less conformed from IT managers, from IT personnel, from database personnel, analytics, maybe programmers, all of this kind of stuff. But in most of the cases that I attend, that the project will be failure, maybe because they don't act as a subject matter expert and a kind of professional that understand the business in terms of business, because we don't only need the best people from IT or the best people from technology. Of course, we need it, but we need people that understands the language of the business and help us in order to give us the business, the best approach is that. And then with all of the kinds of information, we got a right plan. Another second stopper that I found several times is to think about this kind of project regarding a tool. Okay, we can put it on Amazon Cloud with, for example, Microsoft Power BI or whatever, and then we start the project. No, we need to start from the scratch, and again, finally, the tools. And the third point that I think that is so critically is again the process relation to the data, because most of the times, again, we have gigas and gigas or terabytes of information, and we can assume that, okay, we have a lot of transactions from SAP, and we have a lot of information from Dynamics Navision, CRM, etc. We can start over a new data mining project. No, we need to sit down, we need to analyze the data, we need to understand the data, and we can start the process to clean and to prepare this suitable data in order to work with this kind of models. Imagine, Marta, that we need to add information regarding from social media. If we have surveys, if we have, for example, a lot of information on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and we need to take this unstructured information and then pull it on the same place with structured information, and then add variables from one side and variables for another side. Most of the projects where I participate, we started with, for example, 10 variables or predictors in that case, and we finalize with hundreds of predictors. Nothing to do with the first image or with the first photo, but finally we need to mix several kinds of data sources.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you very much, Juan Carlos. We don't have more questions at the moment, but if any of you would like to ask any question to Juan Carlos or to us, and you can reach out. You can send us an email, or we can provide you the contact of Juan Carlos or give you answers as well. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And we're moving to the next session. So now we're gonna have a presentation from Angela Shen-Hsieh. So in this session, she will be doing a use case of the telco sector about solutions on AdTech and MarTech. And here we have Angela. Thank you for being here. And Angela, she is a professor at the Global MBA of Digital Transformation, and she's also the former program director at IBM Watson. Currently, she's head of artificial intelligence in a startup on Stealth Mode. So Angela, the floor is yours.
Hi. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some specific use case that we built when I was the director of data innovation at Telefonica. Telefonica, as you may know, is a large telecommunications company. So the approach of data innovation that I took was to focus on external monetization. So external monetization is it is making money like from a new business. So creating new revenue streams with data. So external data monetization. So we were looking for products that we could sell that were based on our data and build new revenue streams. So the first question you ask when you're thinking about how you're going to monetize your data is, what data do I have and what might it be good for? So I had come from IBM Watson, and we were building AI products. At Watson, we actually had no data. So we were trying to build AI without our own data. And so as JC had mentioned, data is the most important thing. And really, telco data was the reason that I came to Telefonica. Well, also the very nice weather and nice lifestyle of Barcelona. So what's telco data? So telcos actually know a lot of things about their customers' behavior. So the behavior of you and me, because telcos know from your phone where you go physically. So location. Telcos also have access to data of you as a customer. So what we call CRM, or customer relationship management data. We also know where you go digitally, like in terms of online. And we also, if it's a telco like Telefonica that has television, that has Wi-Fi in the home, then we also can know what kinds of things you like to watch on TV. And so now, so we can extract a lot of understanding and insight into behaviors about consumers. And so it's very, very powerful data, really the only kind of data that has any chance to compete with the Googles and the Facebooks of the world. And, essentially, so this is the data we have. If we look at how have the Googles and the Facebooks, Amazon now also, how have they become some of the biggest companies in the world? They've done that through advertising and marketing. And so that is how we defined our playing field for the data. So this is the what's called a customer journey, or the customer journey life cycle. So how people discover your products, how they're sort of persuaded to buy, how they eventually become advocates for your brand in the best case scenario. And so we looked at that life cycle and thought that in the discovery process, we could provide a lot of context in the sort of purchasing process and the customer support process. There was friction that we could potentially resolve. And then we could personalize really all the way across the process. And we thought of this as how to add cognitive to customer experience. So the backdrop at the company was that we had made a statement about being the good guy around data and customer privacy. So we had stated that we were never going to sell your data. So interesting that they then created a unit to monetize data. So we had to figure out a way to monetize our data without selling it. It had to be, we had to keep the data private of our consumers, which really is the right thing to do here. So the sort of vision was taking this data, creating ways to get better marketing and advertising outcomes for the company. It was a way for us to really start to learn about AI. A lot of companies, Watson included, IBM included, started with very, very hard problems like, healthcare, like curing cancer, like creating bots that could talk just like humans and could understand just like humans. These things are very difficult, and they're risky. But serving an ad or a personalization that's not quite right to a customer is less risky, and it's a good place to learn. We had this vision about starting with B2B, so enabling businesses, and then a telco industry, and then ultimately giving the power back to our consumers. So the bigger mission here is that digital advertising isn't done well, and there's so many transgressions of privacy and really good taste. And ads, you don't want following you around, retargeting you, and platforms that rely on stickiness to make money. So they've created algorithms that keep you clicking, and it's created polarization and fake news and radicalization. And there was some way to do this all better for society. So the problem we focused on is pretty simple. It's like giving people a better understanding of who are their customers, then where do they find them, and then how do they keep them. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of the products that we built in this arena. So we built a recommendation system, and it was based on aggregated and anonymized data that we formed into what we called digital neighborhoods. And these sort of digital neighborhoods identified a neighborhood, a group that had different kinds of dimensions. Unlike a physical neighborhood, one person could exist in several different neighborhoods. And what we did was we provided recommendations directly to websites. So we would own real estate on a website, and we started in publishing, and we populated that real estate on a website with recommendations. We eventually got into e-commerce, which is where we wanted to go, but we needed a proof point, and we started in publishing. We were able to be quite successful in increasing click-through. A lot of trial and error. We had really here tremendous innovation around GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations in Europe, which were just becoming an attention focus for many companies. We did find that it was very hard to sell this as a standalone without being part of a bigger package that really runs your e-commerce site. We created what we called an audience product. This one in particular was for out of home, which are billboards out on the highways, on streets. So out of home advertising, and this was a kind of also a fascinating industry to learn about. It's actually the industry standard for understanding who are the audiences for any given billboard are it's a very old standard. They interview a couple thousand people once a year, and they use that to define what are the audiences for any billboard, and that defines the price of advertising on that billboard. And you can imagine that with telco data, with cell phone data, we could do this almost every second, rather than once a year. So we knew all kinds of things about what types of people, correlating back to other behavior that we could understand, and these digital neighborhoods, we could understand it. We could break down an audience in very small increments. I think we ended up looking at sort of 5 to 15 minute increments. Now, this did require sort of digital billboards, but it was a very compelling business case because we could reduce the number of billboards that are required by 26% and have and almost double the sort of impact, which is kind of like the impressions on the target audience. This would actually open up a whole new market for these companies that do outdoor advertising, because they could go to smaller companies rather than just companies that can afford to spend hundreds of thousands of euros at a time to advertise. They could advertise in much smaller increments for, say, a late night restaurant or club on the street late at night, something like that. So what was a challenge was actually changing, getting getting an industry and big players to actually change their business model. So we also built a product called Smart Notifications, which came from research to see if we could detect boredom from network data. So why is that interesting? Because if we could detect when someone is bored, maybe we could provide some kind of entertainment, or maybe it's a moment for engagement. And so what the product did was it used network data and ultimately phone data, because the network data was actually quite difficult to access even inside the company. And to speed our development and our project, we actually went to phone data. And that caused some problems later when Apple changed a lot of their privacy policies around data that apps could access from other applications on your phone. But it took that data, and then we created models around it that predicted when is the best time to contact the user. So imagine, I'm standing in line at a grocery store, or I'm waiting outside for a bus. We could potentially detect, not exactly that moment, but in a machine learning way, we could detect that there is this moment, given a lot of confluences of things, to send a relevant message. And this product was actually, the tech was quite successful. It did require an SDK to be installed on the phone, and in the end, there were some challenges in scaling the business. And then, ultimately, we knew we wanted to build an advertising project or products, but because of the sensitivity in the company around selling data, around advertising being a kind of a negative, it has a very negative connotation. We didn't start there, but this is where we ended. But again, we couldn't sell the data, and so we couldn't take the more sort of obvious paths of putting data into what they called DMPs, which are data management platforms, and those are the things that then send data into the advertising ecosystem and allow people to match cookies and identities. That was sort of an obvious path, but not necessarily the most lucrative, and it wasn't really the right. It didn't have the right optics around it. What we ended up doing is what's called we took a contextual approach, and we use data to figure out where people who like these products and like the services of our client, where else they go. And then we created a whitelist of their sort of behaviors, time, different sites, and we activated that data directly into the ad ecosystem. And so, like that last sentence, that we work directly with brands and place their ads, that required a lot of partners and direct sales and scaling of the business. So it was really a very innovative solution at a moment when third-party cookies were going away, but also a challenge from a business standpoint and from a corporate standpoint. So some of the learnings, the tech was relatively easy, considering the challenges around data access, all the kinds of internal policies and internal systems. We had external things that were happening in the environment around privacy, around opt-in and GDPR. There's the things that Juan Carlos, described around getting internal focus and sponsorships, especially as ML projects, AI projects, you will always have this kind of chicken and egg situation of data, first just accessing the data, because you have to have a reason to access it, but you need the data to be able to figure out whether there's something compelling to do with it. Around building the models, you need the data to build the models, but you need the models to be able to have a situation where you could run the data, and then you also have like a chicken and egg situation with the sort of to get company commitment, which is a challenge, since it's very hard to move a needle in a large company. So if you have a large company and their focus is not data, but it's something that they're trying to promote, there's the core business that is always going to take precedence, and you need sponsorship and the right kind of commitment, long-term commitment to really get these projects going. But I think there, as you can also see, there are many, many opportunities and really, fantastic things that can be done to help, shape the future of our experience and our society. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, very much for this presentation. Now it's the time for the questions and answers. So we have a first question. It says, with the dawn of Web3, where data is set to move from centralized repositories to be interconnected in a decentralized form, what would be the biggest challenge for the presented user case?
So the advertising industry is very interconnected, right? With how we access information, how we do everyday things. So think about Google. Google is not just Google search. Google is Android, so controls the operating system on your phone. Google is Maps, so controls your access to how you get anywhere. We can't do without these things and all the other kinds of tools that they've created. Chrome is a key one. So these big advertising players have many, many mechanisms to keep control of the data. So as far as data used for advertising and marketing purposes, they are unlikely to be affected, except through very much more strenuous regulation.
We have another question. Can you delve deeper into the iterative aspect of the process, the trial and error part?
Yes. Yeah, we worked under a development methodology, a startup methodology called Lean, and you probably have heard of it, Lean startup, and it is it's a process that I think is absolutely key with machine learning projects, because you're looking at hypotheses and you're always tracking hypotheses to meet your ultimate goal. As Juan Carlos had said, a business problem, a business, understanding, a prediction that you're trying to get, and then to sort of why are you doing it? And so you look at the different hypotheses, and then you have a plan in order to resolve those hypotheses. So the process that we sat under just more broadly was we start with an ideation process where the hypotheses are very broad. Is there a problem here, and is it what we think it is for potential customers of the product or service? Then we go into, once we answer that, if we've answered it in an affirmative, and we have validated our assumptions, then we move into a prototyping process. And there we're building real things, and we're testing them in real life situations, preferably with a customer. And then there are more hypotheses, particularly around whether you can make money, whether there's a market, whether you can access customers, whether the technology works, whether the models actually can do something that is significant enough for somebody to be willing to implement it and pay for it. And then we moved into a beta process where we're now trying to scale the product and the business. That's when we start adding, things like, marketing, and really start to build a product. After that, at Telefonica, the process is to move it into a business unit that can really scale the business. It is a challenge because data is so it's always changing, and so you have to have. It's not a product that you build it and you can just hand it over to a new team. It's something that is constantly has to get better and better, and adapt to existing conditions of the data.
And we have one more question. It says, you said that it was a challenge to implement challenges in such a big. You said to implement challenges in such a big player as Telefonica. So, do you think this approach is applicable in smaller industry players and with smaller budgets?
I do. I think you've got more. Again, you've got this problem of a big company needing to focus on its core business, and especially when you're talking about a very big company, you need to show. Nobody gets interested until you can chart a path. You can describe a path to hundreds of millions of dollars. We were doing several million, and that's still a long way off. And I think that's very different. Well, I know it's very different in a smaller company. The challenge with a smaller company is that you don't have the breadth of data to work with. But you could be quite clever to find means to capture data, to acquire different data that's already out there, and to insert yourself in a small way and into some ecosystem, some data ecosystem, and then build from there.
Okay, so at the moment we don't have more questions. But if any of you have any further questions for Angela or for us at Ziggurat, we will be very happy to answer. You can send an email to us and we will forward you to her. So, Angela, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much for this presentation use case.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, now we move on to this Innovation Week. This is the context of the Global MBA of Digital Transformation, an MBA program created for professionals that want to transform their industries and their companies. It is created specifically to bring theory into practice. How do we do this? How do we bring these technologies into real world projects? you can do it with 4 steps. Let's say they are the 4 blocks that we have in the MBA. The first one, you will understand what are the digital foundations. You will look at different business models. And then in the second one, you will dig deeper into customer centricity and loyalty. And you will also understand what are the different innovative models and the maturity models you can find. On the third block, you will look at the whole value chain, from operations to marketing, finance, and IT governance models. And finally, the fun part and why we're here is that you will see what are all these technologies and business accelerators that will make your company faster and be on the top of the ladder. In here, you will find, today we had Juan Carlos Gutiérrez and Angela Shen-Hsieh, which are both professors of the Global MBA. They talk mainly on AI, and we have also accelerators such as IoT, 5G, and blockchain, among others. And at the end of this whole program, and during the program as well, you will be able to bring your own company project and develop it and get all the mentoring from professors like them. So, because we're not alone and we value very much who's actually going to teach, we're always looking for industry-leading experts with a very vast experience in their own field, but also in communicating and teaching. And now you can see here a QR code, and you can grab your phones and scan it, and that will give you direct access to fill in a very short form in which you will get all the information about these masters. And as promised, this is the surprise I have for you. We have a short courses platform, which is called Rooftop. And with this platform, you will find courses from many different topics, such as AI. You will find also topics on IoT, industrial IoT, specifically also about innovation strategy and blockchain. So we give you a code which you can scan. And once you get into the website that is in this QR code, you can choose for the course you prefer. You can fill it in the cart, and then you can put this in a week 22 code, and you will get the course for free. So I hope you enjoyed it very much. And if you have any questions, you can leave them on the chat, or you can email us as well. And I hope you have a nice evening. Thank you for attending.